Hello, and welcome to the Dynamic Man Experience, a podcast dedicated to men who want to become the 10.0 version of themselves through mastering the three key relationships of mindset, money, and the many people in their lives, creating long lasting, deep connections and trusted bonds for real appreciation and understanding.
Yeah. I mean, they have to want something better than what they have. And if they're really desperate or motivated enough to say, we want something better than what we have, and if you have the opportunity to say, these are the ways that you're actually the problem, the bottleneck, you're the one that's creating this reality that you want to change. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm amazed at how much like resonates in our
yeah,
field. Because
yeah,
for me, self-awareness, like that's the language I use is often like deeper self-awareness so that they can show up as better leaders, right?
yeah.
But that's what you're talking about. You're talking about self-awareness, like a deep self-awareness of, well, maybe I'll go back and answer the question I asked you at the beginning is, do you have hope that people are moving forward in good ways and that are wanting to dig deeper and do the work as you mentioned it. And I would say in my own work also, where I'm helping leaders to be more effective, helping create workplaces where people feel that sense of belonging and value. I feel like the work that you do probably takes on some of the heaviness in a more direct way than probably my approach would be, because a lot of the times the external one, and maybe it's the same for the men in your program too, but like there's a lot of external incentive and motivation. Like for leaders to become more effective, there's a lot of payoff. They have more effective, high functioning teams. They have
Yeah.
direct reports who show up energized for work. One of the things I do find has to be right from the outset is they have to want to be learning, right? Like if there's someone who just feels like this is who I am, this is my leadership style, or it's worked for me before, it'll work now. If there's no openness, no curiosity of like, where are my blind spots or those
Yeah.
gaps? Where am I the bottleneck? So that's the first. Yeah, no, for sure. It's so interesting because people, and the same thing what you've just said, they haven't reflected on their values. They have them, they're just not conscious of them. They're not
Yeah.
aware of them. So
Yeah.
what happens then also is they sort of unconsciously impose some of their values on someone else without reflecting like how might that person's approach in this situation or values be different. And I'll just use one example. A cultural difference is North Americans, and I can't speak for all like tend to really value individuality, like
Yeah.
autonomy and make decisions and take charge, get things done. Many places where they value community, collaboration, where you work together as a team. And so where that shows up in the workplace, if there's not this awareness.
Today we're going to welcome Robyn Penner-Thiessen all the way from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Sounds like a mouthful, but it's Canada. So yet another really interesting character. I love the Canadians. They are by far the most polite, most incredible people. We're going to discover how Robyn treats her work, inclusive leadership, and how that is quite similar to the work I'm doing in mindset and awareness, knowing your values. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it with Robyn Penner-Thiessen. Robyn Penner-Thiessen, welcome.
Thanks, Neil.
Hello, Manitoba,
Here we are, Great White North, we used to call it.
the Great White North. Okay, how's the weather today?
Well, thankfully, there's no snow. So, yeah, it's warm, like Celsius, 27 degrees.
That's nice.
It's warm.
27 is lovely, yeah.
Yeah.
And what has you excited today? What are you working on that's exciting?
Well, you think of summer and August as kind of a slow time, but actually, I would say it's kind of looking busy to prepare for the things coming up even in the next month, which is a good feeling, like to kind of know that, yeah, it's looking up to be a good fall and that that I'm excited. I love summer, don't get me wrong. I love vacation like anyone. And in fact, I just got back. Well, I will say what's got me super excited is I actually became a grandma this summer. My oldest daughter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was pretty wild, but yep.
Yeah, yeah. How does that feel?
Wonderful. They live in Calgary, so that's a bit of a
Okay.
distance, which
Yeah.
it's hard to be so far away. And I was
Right. Right.
told to kind of like weave it all in. So my kids are very much part of why I do the work that I'm doing. I'm very passionate about it. But now having a grandchild, it makes me even like a thousand times more passionate about the work that I do. Yeah, for my granddaughter, actually.
Excellent. Excellent. And you want to be an inspiration.
Be an inspiration. I want to make the world a better place, to be honest.
Okay.
I want to make it easier, smoother, more welcoming, kinder. That's really my
That's your mission.
mission. Yeah.
It's a noble mission. It's a really good time to be thinking like that, really, isn't it?
Right. I mean,
We need
around the
more people
yeah, you
thinking that.
just so much division, and I wish people could be kinder, more welcoming. And there's a lot of places in the world that are not very welcoming.
It's funny, I remember years ago, like when you would see bumper stickers, "Don't believe the media," you know, and here we are, finally believing the media, stirring up the storm, and we're actually buying into it when it's like, you know, stop buying into it. If
Yeah,
we stop buying into it, everything is hunky dory, really.
right. That's a good point. You know what? I don't know if I ever saw that bumper sticker. Don't believe the media though, but it's I do remember in university kind of being told to question what you read and not, the bias. So there's that I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but just I remember kind of that you can't just trust.
No, you can't. And look, in my work, I believe that there's a vacuum of strong men.
Right.
Before, men were like suckers for a woman fluttering her eyelids, but now it's like, here's some money, shut up, and men are just shutting up. And
Mm,
you can see it right around the world. There's weak leaders everywhere we look. There's a
mm,
vacuum of strong men.
yeah, yeah.
And as much as, it's great to see women being independent, doing their thing, but, we need men to be just as strong.
Well, and that's what you're all about, isn't it? I mean, that's really the
Yeah, it really
essence.
is, it's getting men to accept the challenge because women are, challenging us in to do better.
Mhm.
And, we can't turn away from that really. We have to accept the challenge. So we can do better and we have to do better because, the fan keeps on turning, but like if we're gonna keep on spraying it with crap, things aren't going to get better. So we have to put a foot down.
Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are you hopeful? Like, are you hopeful for that, the vision that you're working towards, or the future that you're helping create?
I do. I believe it's the best time ever to be a man. It's the best time ever to be a woman, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that sense, it has to be a good time to be a man. We just need to do the work.
Right. That's it.
And I see, look, it's early days in the hockey curve, I suppose. And we're in that early first 10%. But in, 15, 20 years, I can definitely see a lot more guys doing this kind of work. At the
Yeah.
moment, it's kind of groundswell. There's more of, small men's groups popping up around the place.
Yeah.
8 to 12 guys meeting on a weekly basis or whatever. But the more that kind of stuff happens, the wider the net is spread and the more guys see that other guys are going through very similar stuff.
Right.
'Cause we
Yeah.
tend to believe that like we are the only ones suffering from what we're suffering from, like we think these mental disorders or these obstacles, these challenges are all very personal until we start talking to other guys and we figure out, "Oh, a minute, everyone's going through this,
Yeah. It's powerful.
whether it be like opioids or heroin or just limiting beliefs, everything right across the whole board. We're all going through the same stuff."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the more guys talk about it, yeah, I am hopeful. I am very hopeful. The when I see people like Bill Burr talking about men's emotional reluctance, well-being, their how they cope, how they don't cope, and you know these top comedians are very philosophical. They're very incisive, very insightful
Yeah.
on observing everything that's going on. And I think like once like the likes of Bill Burr starts talking about these things, then it becomes very topical.
Yeah.
because he makes it easy for us to talk about these things. He's coming from a place where his father, like, would have been very fine, raging, nothing in between kind of thing. So, yeah, I would say that we have no choice. We have to do the work. AI is here and it's going to kick our ass until we figure out how we can help AI to help us. So we have to do the work. We have to do the work. We've been kicking the can down the road since the Romans entered Gaul. So yeah, look, it's time. There comes a time, and we have to do the work, reflect. So when you look at it from your side, what do you think? You've just brought is it a granddaughter?
Yes, a little girl.
What's her name?
Novaya.
Via.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah, never heard of that name before. I
never
love
heard.
it. Gorgeous.
Incredible, great
Right.
name,
Mm-hmm.
Via. Okay, so like when she's looking for a man in 25 years time, partner, what do you see like as the future for guys out there, from where we are now? Say guys in this country are college graduates in this country are 60% female now.
Is that right?
Yeah, so that would have been the other way 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So women are doing better. They're coming out of college, they're getting better jobs, they're doing better. Where do you see guys improving on where we are right now? Getting away from the Andrew Tates and all these red pill, blue pill, incel type stuff and just actually doing the work and becoming better guys, better human beings.
I mean, it's a deep question, a hard question maybe to really fully answer. But one of the things I think that sometimes happens is when the world does get more polarized, which we're seeing for sure, and there are some maybe more negative voices or divisive or angry voices, it also requires people who might have otherwise been kind of fence sitters to choose, to say, where do I want to stand? Who do I what am I standing for? And maybe then it also challenges those men that really do have deep values of respect and truth and, the honesty, all of the values that we would look for. Maybe they step into that more fully because they're almost being pushed to not, if they don't want to identify with something they really are against, they have to figure out what they're for. And that could be really powerful, I think. Sometimes it's too easy to be sort of in the
Yeah.
middle, that whole wishy-washy. Well, I guess, and again, not that I am thankful for a time when there's polarization. I'm not. I'm against it. But if it causes good men to step into those leadership roles and be role models and raise their children to be standing for what's right.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the silver lining in the midst of the storm.
Yeah. Like, I suppose in this country right now, there's a lot of censorship. We can't speak out about certain things. Guys are getting cancelled. Guys are getting paid off, and the pendulum always swings, right? So there's like, I suppose, a school of thought that this is like there's a lot of books in play here, manuals, Bibles, religious books, how we do business. It's like, are we kind of transcending out of that kind of a world into a more empathetic, more caring? I suppose for us guys, the hardest word is a four-letter word, and we don't respond well to the word love. You know, especially. So I think to do the work really, there's no way around it. Is the way we find how much we can love ourselves, how much we should love ourselves. And Matthew McConaughey mentioned this in an interview he did. He said that someone mentioned how full of himself he was, and he was like, "Well, who else should I be full of?"
Good
You know,
question. Yeah.
and that's such a powerful reframe
Yeah.
because it is, it's like we should be full of ourselves.
Right.
Dan Martell always talks about it like being that best version of yourself, a 10.0 version of yourself. But why stop at 10? Keep going.
Well, I think if people see full of yourself being arrogant, cocky, putting other people down. Like that's not what I don't think Matthew McConaughey meant or Dan Martell, right? Like it's like when
No,
you really do have that sense of self-worth and inner value, I think you show up with deeper compassion for others, empathy,
exactly.
wanting
Yeah,
to make the world a better place. So, yeah, I think when people call someone, "Oh, you're so full of yourself," they usually mean that as yeah, you're acting like a arrogant jerk, but that's
but
not the
like,
goal.
no, you're right. But that his line is such a like knockdown. Just use that. Who else would I be full of? It's like Oscar Wilde. Just be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. So just be that best version of yourself and don't hold back.
Mm-hmm.
And then inspire others and get rid of the people that talk like that and think like that and just be around people that like appreciate that you are, you know, being like the utmost service that you can be in this world. The best service that you can provide in this world is being your best self.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. And if we keep working at finding our way to the best version of ourselves and sharing that with the world,
Yeah,
as Dan often does talk about, I think the world becomes a better place for everybody.
absolutely. But, then there's no way around it. We have to do the work. We have to go deep. And then you can be, okay, maybe you're not going to be as successful as Dan Martell, but when he speaks, when you ask him a question, he always finds the right thing to say. And sometimes he'll kick your ass. Sometimes he'll put his arms around your shoulder, encourage you. But like it's all the same. He knows how to motivate different people. But his overall ambition is to help you succeed. Like his success is only as satisfying as your success. And that's the attitude we should have with people, really, as
Right.
men, as women.
Yeah.
But like that's what I'm trying to imprint on guys. It's like this is the best time ever to be a man, just cut the bullshit. We're in the early stages of like guys doing the work, so everyone else is crawling around on their emotional hands and knees. Like all you have to do is a small bit of work and your head sticks out above the crowd. People notice. Women notice.
And that's like, I mean, you were saying that's what Dan Martell does, but Neil, I see that totally in you. You're trying to bring out the best in the people that you're working with. You're trying to help them become the best version of themselves. And sometimes you're probably calling them on their BS and saying, come on, shape up. Like this isn't you can do better. And sometimes you put your arm around them, encourage them when they're wounded or broken, and you try to walk alongside them, right? Like, I mean, that's what I see your passion being.
It is, it's like I've always believed it's in all of us. Always believed that. No matter how stupid you act or like how how badly you're living, there is an ability inside you, no matter how down on your luck you are. Maybe you got hooked on heroin, whatever. You can still you can still make a rebound. And I've talked to two guys in the last couple of months who've been off heroin for, one guy's off for a year, another guy off for 10 years. And just the guys, they find the other guys going through different problems, different issues, but with the same mindset,
Mhm.
doing the deeper work. And, like that is the common thread. There's no way around it. You have to do the work.
Yeah.
But like I always tell the guys, it's like, why are you saying no to the greatest adventure of your life? It's the final frontier, you just have to explore it. Or else it's just, wasted. Wasted. It's a wasteland. Like you are neglecting so much of your own treasure. You're sitting on a treasure and you're not even like thinking about using it.
Right. Well, and they're not seeing it, right? That's
That's it.
talked about is like if you don't see where your gaps are or where your potential is or the way you're totally missing the
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
how do you help people find their way to that vision and that version of themselves? And that's exactly like the work that I do with leaders. They want to be deep down, they want to be the best version of a leader they can be,
Yeah.
but they often don't have maybe that self-awareness, that insight to see like these are the things that are getting in the way of them really being able to be like fully effective, fully, bring out the best in their team, all of that.
It's like being stuck in traffic for hours and hours, you know. You just can't see where the traffic is going to go or how you're going to get out of this. I suppose, like Dan Martell always talks about the bottleneck, the theory of
Right.
constraints. It's hard to see. It's hard to even know that you're in a bottleneck. So how do you get out of something that you don't even know you're in? It goes go.
Well, not only are you in the bottleneck, you might be the bottleneck, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like you don't even see that you're the what's getting in the way of things really flowing smoothly or expanding or, you know, the work that I do is like the team really gelling or being high performing. And you don't even realize that you're the one that's getting in the way of that happening.
Yeah, look, and it's the team. The team always wants to contribute. So, like, how do you get them? How do you put them into a position where they're actually adding? Feeling that they're part of something that's growing. So when you're the bottleneck, you're actually like blaming people for not doing what you can't even describe they should be doing. How do you poke people in that blind spot to make them see?
One of the things I do find has to be right from the outset is they have to want to be learning, right? Like if there's someone who just feels like this is who I am, this is my leadership style, or it's worked for me before, it'll work now. If there's no openness, no curiosity of like where are my blind spots or those
Yeah.
gaps? Where am I the bottleneck? So that's the starting point. So in order for me to really be able to help somebody they have to at least have a little bit of like interest and curiosity about that. But then it's interesting, because again, like I'll say a lot of leaders, they've been leaders for many years and they'll look back and say, it's just more complicated than it used to be because 20 years ago, the team maybe looked just like them, right? There was more homogenous. And
Yeah.
as the workplace gets more complex, as teams get more diverse, that's what keeps them awake at night. And so by the time a lot of times when I'm working with them, they're already like dealing with frustrations and challenges or turnover or like low retention. And so if they come with that, like, please help me see what I'm not seeing. And if I can in a kind of a gentle way say, like, what are the ways that you are actually the problem? Maybe
Right.
say exactly so directly. But if it eases some of the pressure they're feeling, or if it gives them some strategies that they didn't have before, that's a really good start to them being willing to go all in and say, like, okay, let's keep digging in here and almost like putting your finger on the pain point and just saying, if we can figure some of this out, everything else starts to flow, more smoothly. I don't know. That's what I find. How does that look in the work that with the men that you work with?
I talked to a guy there recently. He's 56. He just quit his job about a month ago in advertising. 20 years ago, if you lost your job in your 50s, that was the end of your working life. Maybe you could go sweeping roads or something, stocking shelves or Home Depot. I said, what are you going to do next? Well, he said, I'm going to take a cruise in the Caribbean for a week, and
Nice.
then I'm going to decide on one of six options. So, like when you're talking to a guy that's in a bottleneck or woman, what you really want to be providing is the option that everyone wants. You know, that you have people lining up to work for you. So, how do you become that option?
Yeah.
So rather than losing people, turning people over because you haven't reached that point yet, So it's kind of the same with guys. It's how can you convince guys that they are the bottleneck in their own lives? How are they like at the end of the day, like a lot of guys are just in their own way, which is the very definition of a bottleneck, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they have to want something better than what they have. And if they're really desperate or motivated enough to say, we want something better than what we have, and if you have the opportunity to say, these are the ways that you're actually the problem, the bottleneck, you're the one that's creating this reality that you want to change, how about starting to look at what are the things that you need to do differently? But I'm guessing there has to be a fair bit of either dissatisfaction with the way things are going, whether it's career, relationships,
It
happiness.
is often like a bad breakup or divorce, and there's a certain amount of surrender, giving in, not gritting their teeth and getting stuck in and finding ways to rise to the challenge. They kind of submit, they tap out. Someone told me the other day, we were at a barbecue the other night, and I was talking to someone, and she just turned around, she says, all right, I'm tapping out, see you later. And I think a lot of guys tap out. They've had the bad experience, the really bad divorce. They've hit. They turn to alcohol. They kind of withdraw inwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they talk about the good fight, but how willing are they to do the work? Because you have to work harder as you're getting older. You have to do more exercise. It's not easy to stay nimble the older you get. You've got to be stretching, you've got to be moving. We need to change the way we eat. The brain needs more oils the older we get. You have to be so aware of so many different things, and it's just easy just to pick up a six pack and a bag of chips and just wallow in your own misery because it's comfortable, and the opposite is like so challenging, doing the 5 daily non-negotiables. You have to exercise, you have to do this, you have to do that. Like there's an etiquette to growing old with energy, because we don't want to be that older guy that's running across the road just as the traffic light is turning red, and that's the only exercise you ever get at the traffic lights. Like I was just reading about a guy that finished the Death Valley Ultra Marathon
Impressive.
about 6 weeks ago. 80 years old.
How old?
80.
And that's now I'm even more impressed.
Yeah, and that wasn't his first time trying it, but he
Yep.
was determined to finish it, and he did it. So maybe on his third or fourth attempt, but still, I mean, it's 120 degrees in Death Valley.
Right.
So, like, you got to keep moving. And the amount of guys that are actually doing the work, I suppose it's like the amount of people that are actually doing the work to stay relevant, to stay fit, to stay healthy. It's like in single digits, percentage wise.
Is it? So it's not because I always think of like the bell curve. Like maybe most people are somewhere in the middle. Like they're not the ultra marathoners, but maybe they're not the six pack and a bag of chips people, but they're like, we're trying to stay active. We're trying, we want to do better. Like, aren't most people trying to find happiness?
If most people were trying like stay fit, there wouldn't be room on the roads like with all the joggers,
True.
cyclists. You know
True.
what I mean? So like the people that are staying fit are like the exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
You see, I talked to a guy the other day here at the beach. He's in his 40s. He did very well. He was one of the first adopters on YouTube. Casey Neistat is his name. He was talking about, uh, he stopped in the middle of a 20-mile run. We had a quick chat. He kept on running and then came back later for a surf. It was like, wow, that's pretty impressive, man. You look very fit. And he says, yeah, I do it every day. I've been doing this every day for years. He hasn't missed a day. He wouldn't miss a day.
20-mile run.
Every day. He says he never runs out of energy. But like if you look at every successful person, they are pushing themselves to the limit.
Yes, and again, that fits with I would say my theory, and again, not based on any research, I'm just making this up, but that there are the people that are the super fit ones running 20 miles a day, and
Yeah.
there are the ones that are totally inactive. But some people are walkers, or they take yoga, or they, have a treadmill in their basement. And so and maybe with a bit of encouragement, they could step it up. If you come into their life and you say, you'd have more energy if you started jogging 5 kilometers a day, or you added fruits and vegetables or whatever. But like, and again, the work that I do with leaders, if they are the ones that are just stuck in some old habits and patterns, they're probably not going to be the ones that are eager to be working with me. A lot of people kind of in the middle
Yeah.
who they know they can do better, they want to do better. With a bit of encouragement and support, they can learn some new skills. So I guess I try not to be focused too much on the ones that are really like they're never gonna be open to that deep
Yeah.
reflection or that curiosity, and the ones that are like kind of leading the pack and already running Death Valley ultra marathons, they don't need my help, right? They've already.
They don't, but like there's quite a lot of people out there that are butting their heads against the wall, glass ceilings, whatever, and they can't. They've put in the work, they've put in the time, and they just can't understand why they're not succeeding. And I think you know yourself as a solopreneur, it's not easy, And like I listened to some podcasts, and this guy's Anthony Scaramucci, who worked with Trump. He's
Okay.
got his own business. He left Goldman Sachs, went open his own, and a friend of his was going to do the same, and he was like, "Yeah, go for it." But like I'll tell you this, man, it's not easy.
Well, even to that, you're right.
Yeah, it's nothing is easy, and like I was told, like Casey Neistat, and he was one. Like I said, it took him years to crack YouTube, but when he did, it went to the moon. You know, it took him years to build up like 200,000. 7 years or some, I don't know exactly, but like, in 18 months he was at 10 million. But, that's like Dan Martell said, he committed to YouTube for 10 years. Committed. Because he knows, it takes time. So that is the thing, I suppose, with guys I'm coaching is they want all the results now. And you're like, no man, this work never ends.
Mhm.
I'm just setting you up with the right habits, the right clearing the decks for you, man. Just clearing all the clutter out of your head. It's like a psychological cold plunge. And just getting rid of all the crap. It was planted in your head during one painful experience and has become a way of life, a life sentence, and you've applied that playbook to every situation that's somewhat similar, so that it becomes automatic. So it's just getting rid of that kind of stuff. Helping guys see. I talked to I coached a guy the other day, and his father left when he was, I don't know, 3 years old or something, 6 years old, something like that, and traumatic. But like,
Sure.
you go
Absolutely.
back and you help a guy see the situation for what it was. Have a closer look at it. Put yourself in the situation. Have a look at it now, and what emotions do you see? And what he saw was like there was so much love there. And that was a total reframe for him.
Yeah.
So I just he could feel the anxiety draining.
Yeah. That's
So
beautiful.
we carry that stuff around with us unknowingly. It's like we have a dungeon, a cavern deep in our souls where we jam all this stuff, so far down that it never sees the light of day. So that when you do shine a light on it, it's just gone like. And you realize you've been holding that and there's a weight to it.
Sure.
So when you release that weight, it's like, boom,
Lifted.
trigger that. Now you can compound it. So
Yeah.
like when you're releasing some sessions, deeper sessions I go on, like you're releasing weight from your chest, from your shoulders, from your neck, from your face. So like at the end of a session, like you are like transformed. But I find with some guys that they think that's the end of the road. You know, that's as close to the flame that they can go. But when you do actually go deeper, like one guy was so traumatized by a horrific event when he was 15 years old, he shut down his imagination for nearly 25 years.
Wow.
So like he would delegate anything creative. He was a manager for FedEx in England. He would delegate anything creative, marketing, sales, anything that had to be like pretty, imaginative. Delegate it, either to his staff or at home. He'd delegate all that kind of creative, imaginative stuff to his kids. And he would never visualize, never dreamed. He
Hmm.
shut down his imagination, right? Now, it was to do with a brutal murder of his first cousin. So he refused. He refused to visualize that.
Yeah.
Caused him to shut down his imagination. And he was trying to branch out as a coach, the start of his coaching journey, right? And he couldn't figure out like why he was going so far and not getting where he wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
So like we did a bit of work with that, and he thought it might have been a divorce. His parents
Mm-hmm.
got divorced a few years before that, and he shoved this experience so far down he'd forgotten all about it.
Yeah.
So when we dug that up, I was like, okay, you're the only one that can really celebrate this, your cousin's life. You have to celebrate his life. How are you going to do that? And today, he's a story brand coach on LinkedIn. Creativity is his special skill,
Wow.
his mission.
That's
So
amazing.
that's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing, like that he was able to, like the first couple of weeks after working with him, I'd be like, well, how are you doing? He was like, I'm afraid to go to sleep because I've started dreaming for the first time in like over 2 decades. Wow.
Imagination was sort of opened up.
Yeah, exactly. So we just don't know where our blind spots are. We've buried them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some deep bottlenecks.
Yeah. And there's sometimes I think you're right that there's some event or catalyst or moment or question at the right time that and people have to be ready then to explore. Like this gentleman was ready to reflect on where, what had happened that caused that kind of wound that he was carrying. And I think that happens, I mean, not maybe often enough that people have that aha moment of like, okay, I got a glimpse of something. Now let me go deeper with it. Or
Yeah.
I see changes that I might need to make, help me, really change in this area. I want to become a better version of myself, better, parent, leader, friend, whatever it is. And I think sometimes it is those like, you almost don't even know what's happening until it's like, this was the moment when they were ready or willing to kind of reflect more deeply. And when it
Yeah,
happens, that's pretty transformative.
absolutely. It's so satisfying to see people releasing themselves because like it is a release from a life sentence.
Absolutely.
You've convicted yourself to a life sentence that you didn't even deserve.
Right.
That's the thing with some guys, they're so married to the belief structure. Maybe we're looking at divorce in the right way. You're divorcing yourself from that belief. And the belief structure is so strong, you know. We 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 defend, the ego defends us. It's like a medieval castle, medieval emotional castle. We need to storm the ramparts. Yeah, look, it's mining. We have to be mining engineers because some of this stuff is buried so deep.
Yeah. And I feel like the work that you do probably takes on some of the heaviness in a more direct way than probably my approach would be, because a lot of the times the external one, and maybe it's the same for the men in your program too, but like there's a lot of external incentive and motivation. Like for leaders to become more effective, there's a lot of payoff. They have more effective, high functioning teams. They have
Yeah,
direct reports who show up energized for work, numbers at the end of the quarter look at like, right? There's,
yeah,
especially when there's some challenges, they want to find solutions. Maybe there's more of an openness to exploring those solutions because of that external payoff. And they're more
yeah,
mindful of it. Although, like I would say, there are often rewards, external rewards for doing that inner work, but the work might be more terrifying than thinking, how do we, how do I, as a leader, become more effective? How do I communicate more effectively? How do I understand my team that I'm struggling with, or that one team member who, yeah, I don't know how to get through them. Like it has a different maybe feel to it than some of the more heavy and soul wrenching conversations that you're having.
yeah. And it's like, I think the way you're describing it there is very similar. The three key relationships I work on with men are the relationship with themselves,
Hmm.
relationship with money, and relationship with their loved ones and friends
Yep.
and people in general. I would say for me, I talk to everybody. Anyone that crosses my path, I will have a word for them. And I think it's very similar in business, like the better relationships you have with people, the more they're going to be interested in helping you, working harder for you. You're going to have more empathy. And going back to Dan Martell, he always talks about, how do you get people on your side? You figure out what their goals are and you integrate their goals into your goals, and it becomes a joint mission. And it's the same in relationships. I talked to another coach there recently, and he's in the elite program too, and he's reading the Buy Back Your Time book, and he says to his wife, you better read this because, this is the mission. You better get on board with this because I don't want to be getting divorced on the road because of this.
Yeah.
So you have to buy into this now.
Stakes
This
are
is
high.
this is what's going to grow our business and grow our family.
Yeah.
And you can see, like I just saw, he just posted today. They've just bought their house, their home. So he's growing.
Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
yeah, look, that's all down to getting other people's goals integrated with yours.
Yeah.
I think, like I talked about it with that guy on a couple of days ago, coaching him, just how fast we get into relationships and how slow we get out of them. And maybe like we should twist that around and get into relationships fast or slow.
Slow, right?
And if it's not right, get out fast.
So you were saying you originally people get in fast, but stay in too long is what you're saying. They stay in toxic, unhealthy.
So, but if we turned that around and got in slower, took our time, got really aligned with the other person, that guy Lewis Howes, he has that greatness podcast. He when he met his girlfriend, and they're married now, but when they met first, he said to her, okay, you're going to be number 3 on my list. First is my mission, second is my business, third is you. And she said, okay, I can relate to that. Yeah, and you're going to be number 3 on my list as well. So, but like straight away they were aligned,
Right.
Both of them had a vision, both of them had a purpose, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. Because we tend to jump like into the deep end with a relationship. Oh, I got lucky last night, kind of thing, Certainly, 3 months down the road, the honeymoon period is over, and here we are in someone else's mess, and we don't know how to get out of it. So, I think really that when we do the work, then it comes down to one very simple question, which relates to having a high standard for yourself.
Okay.
Does this person meet my standard? Is she late for dates? Is she responsive to text or phone calls? You can tell very, very, very fast when you have maintained high standards for yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I would say to your point of, slow, begin the relationship slow and maybe get out of it fast at the end. You'll maybe laugh at this parallel, but in fact, with hiring new employees, there's a lot of similarities, not necessarily in like how long you take to hire them because there's a process there, but actually one of the gaps that comes up in a lot of workplaces and teams is the onboarding process. How with and I'll just use the example of diversity. When people come from other cultures, countries, background, whatever, we can't assume that they just know automatically all the expectations of the workplace or all the way things are done. And so you throw your new employee just into the deep end without sort of that explanation, that sort of decodifying whatever some of the unwritten rules of a workplace. And then 3 months in, they're not performing and you're like, wow, I hired a dud.
Yeah.
But in fact, what they're doing, what I'm seeing in workplaces now in organizations where they start to realize like, okay, I mean, it's not even people from other countries, Neil. It's the younger generation. Like generational differences is one of the biggest challenges that I work with a lot because managers are in their 40s and 50s and they're supervising younger people in their 20s and early 30s. And I encourage them to not assume that they know all of the things that you and I might have known when we got our first job in our 20s. So if they can be more intentional in those early days, like in a relationship, like be intentional and really kind of guide them and have more of an orientation onboarding process, how that then the gain in terms of them getting up to speed and being like really successful in their position, it's everybody wins, right? Because the new
Yeah.
employee is more successful. You're not having to rehire because that's expensive for the company and demoralizing. So it actually is paying attention in a different way than we used to 20 years ago
Yeah.
because it's just such a different reality. And I think probably then there comes a point where you do want to get out fast if it's not going to be a good fit. And there definitely is a time you didn't want to cut your losses, but put the time in at the beginning up front to set them up for success. And it can be pretty dramatic, the differences.
It's so true, you know, and like when you talk about the generational thing, I think one of the one of the factors that we miss in relationships, romance or work is establishing the values, your values and what values the people that are in your life. You know, what are the values? You have to know your values. That is one of the questions that I ask guys and they're like, I don't know. You know, like people don't think about what their values are. You have to ask them. Like the question I asked them is like, what is it that makes you the most angry? Like, think about that. What makes you really, really angry? And that's usually an indication that someone is like trampling on your core value.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what's your core value? You have to reverse engineer it, you know, backtrack a bit. But people don't think about their values. Do you find that like in business, like when you're talking about managers in their 40s and 50s, bringing on, you know, guys or people in their 20s, and how do the values bridge the gap?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's so interesting because people, and the same thing what you've just said, they haven't reflected on their values. They have them, they're just not conscious of them. They're not aware of them.
Yeah,
What happens then also is they sort of unconsciously impose some of their values on someone else without reflecting like how might that person's approach in this situation or values be different. And I'll just use one example. But a cultural difference is North Americans, and I can't speak for all like tend to really value individuality, like
yeah,
autonomy and make decisions and take charge, get things done. Many places where they value community, collaboration, where you work together as a team. And so where that shows up in the workplace, if there's not this awareness, the boss might think, why can't they move faster? Why do they keep checking or having conversations? Why aren't they a self-starter? Because they're valuing individual action. And that's a key value for success, or saying that's a star employee. But
right,
for a person who has come from a place where we do this together, this is a team effort, I'm going to consult so that our
yeah,
outcome is stronger or we have more buy-in. They can totally miss each other, even though they're both operating 100% in their own
yeah,
deeply held values, which would you say one's better or worse, right or wrong? Like that's the thing. A lot of times these differences, they're not better or worse than, but you need to be aware of them or you run into a lot of trouble. And so it is actually one of the things I like to do. Just help people explore what are the values, where did you learn them? I mean,
yeah,
punctuality is such again, Western value of like, if you are late, you're disrespecting my time or, um, I had tell the story of a university student who was in the hallway talking on his cell phone and he was late for class. Well, the professor was like, you're so disrespectful that I saw you out there and now you're late for my class. Like, you may as well not show up. Well, this young man who was from a country in Central America said, I was on the phone with my mother and I could not disrespect her to hanging up the phone on her. Like that relationship of respect to his elder, to his mother, was also a deeply held value.
yeah,
So it was, we just need to sometimes explore and reflect and be curious. I mean, one of the, I think the best qualities in a leader is that curiosity, like genuine interest in why was I triggered or what was some
yeah,
belief or value that I grew up without questioning, and what's this other person's perspective and what are they thinking about this situation that might be totally different than mine, and maybe we need to figure this out. How I don't want you showing up late to class, or can you find a way to call your mother at a different time, right? We get creative with finding solutions.
Yeah.
But if we're not open and aware of the values that we have that might be the same or different than others, that's where we often run into problems and
Yeah,
misunderstandings.
exactly. Look, and that could very well be the same value, integrity.
Sure.
Integrity is to not hang up on his mother, and
Right.
integrity to have people show up in time for the class. So, like, we really need to be more aware of the values. And, I read a book by Dr. Adriana James about different value levels. Value levels 4 is coming out of, like I was saying earlier about the manuals, the religious
Yeah.
Bibles, coming out into more like an entrepreneurial, solopreneur age, and leading on to more values level 6, which is more empathy for people, planet, all that kind of stuff, So we're right in the mix of all this combustion at the moment, and there seems to be a fundamentalism at work right across all the religions that is like detrimental. It's not encouraging freedom in an age when freedom is all around us. We're all grabbing it.
Hmm.
There's never been such a surge of entrepreneurial, I would say, investment in yourself and ways to make money. There's never been so much money ever in the world. And it's quite a mix, really. You throw AI into it.
Yeah.
Where is this all going? There's so much going on that if we don't know our values, if we don't know what we want, that's another question. What do you want? Not so many guys can tell you what they want.
Interesting.
You can get world peace and more money. What do you want? It's not about the vagueness of your answer. Like, what do you want? What was your dream when you were a kid? Back when you were a genius, when you were so free with your imagination and had no limiting beliefs, no like negative emotions to hold you back. What were you thinking back then? What do you want? And
That's
most
a beautiful
guys,
question. Yeah, I love it.
yeah, most guys like just have forgotten,
Hmm.
have allowed themselves to be beaten off the track. Yeah, yeah. Like it's so important to sit down and reflect on your values, and then
Yeah.
like exactly who's good for you, who's bad for you, who you should be around, who you shouldn't be around. What jobs are good for you? What companies are good for you? Do they match my values?
Right.
Does this woman match my values? What's your values? I don't know.
Yeah. You're right. Most people
Yeah.
haven't reflected on them. And they haven't figured out where they learned them from. Like they have all these unconscious beliefs and values. Yeah, did they learn them from their parents? Did they learn them at their church? Did they learn them in their community? Like from TikTok, right? Like where did they learn these values? They haven't even explored or thought about what they are, let alone where they learned them from. And do they really want to are they good values to have going forward?
That's it. And it comes back to the autopilot, the values are just in there and we kind of, it's like sometimes we give people too many second chances, but why are we giving them second chances? Sometimes, we keep on doing it, keep on doing it. We don't stop, but it's like, it really makes us feel like crap. But that's like one of your values right there, that you're allowing someone to work against you, actively work against you, instinctively. They mightn't know exactly what they're doing, but they're doing it. And especially right now, I suppose like narcissism is rampant. I think it's probably the STD of our age.
And do you see that, especially like, again in the men that you're talking to? Would you say that's one of their main challenges to overcome?
I would think so. It's clash of ego,
Yeah.
you do get to talk to so much ego. It's like, yeah, let's get past the ego and let's talk.
Right.
So like you have to ask those questions. Your values, what do you want?
Hmm.
And where are you going? And what are you looking for in a woman? Have you ever sat down and thought about what you want in a woman? Like what are you looking for? Are you looking for eye candy? Are you looking for someone that's going to challenge you in the right ways and push you and support you when you need it in your journey? We don't think about these things. We don't think about much except all the crap that goes on in our head, which we deny. We're simple beings. All we think about is money, sport, beer, women.
That's it. That's the list.
But it's not. Like, there's so much more going on in our heads. It's swirling around in our heads.
Yeah.
We're hoarding. We're hoarding so much crap. Men are hoarders, emotional hoarders. That's why we hate the word emotional, because we know we're hoarding so much crap that we don't like to admit to anyone. You
Yeah.
know?
I'm amazed at how much like resonates in our
Yeah.
field. Because
Yeah.
for me, self-awareness, like that's the language I use is often like deeper self-awareness so that they can show up as better leaders, right?
Yeah.
But that's what you're talking about. You're talking about self-awareness, like a deep self-awareness of
Absolutely.
going on deep inside and not just staying at that surface level or at that just, 1 inch deep, but really having that deep self-reflection. It's really there's a lot of similarities. It's quite remarkable.
It is, and it's like it all comes down for me. It all comes down to one thing: energy. And like I went to a craniosacral osteopath a few days ago,
Okay.
and he straightened out a bit of an injury I had. I relieved all this pain. So like it. He was saying it's all consciousness is energy. I was like, what are you feeling when you're doing this work? He says, just finding the flow, the energy, consciousness. It's all consciousness. Everything that we do, like if we're like, as guys, if we're like only, like if you're operating at 7 out of 10 in your business and 6 out of 10 in your romance and 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 in your money, like you're not doing too badly.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were like operating at 9 out of 10 in your own mindset, everything else comes up. So it's really the relationship with yourself is the fuel, the energy,
Yeah.
consciousness, the awareness. And for guys, we like we like to find ways to dim the energy. Alcohol, weed, porn, whatever it is. We dull the senses. We try to kill that energy, repress our own energy. I've done it for years, and like it's like a volcano. It comes out. You can't keep it down. It's going to come out, and like the damage that you're going to do. Do you ski?
They do. Yeah.
Okay. So like yourself, the moment that you face your skis down the mountain and you stick your nose down the mountain, that's when you're going to have the most fun. But it's like getting guys to take the drop, to stick their nose down the mountain against their better judgment, against all natural instinct, to like face yourself down a mountain. It takes a bit of getting
Yep.
used to.
It's terrifying. Can
It's
be
terrifying.
terrifying, especially
Yeah,
if you haven't done it, right? It's like
yeah,
if you know the fun that's ahead, it's easy to go over that first edge, kind of
yeah.
overcome your fear. But when it's your first time or it's very unfamiliar or you feel like
Whoa.
like you're gonna get hurt, right? Well, you survive. I mean, all of that terror is probably what they're having to overcome.
I remember my first time snowboarding. I crashed into two kids on the way down, used
Yep.
them as brakes.
Hopefully they're
I was
okay.
like, but yeah, look, I always use that analogy. It's
Mhm.
like you have to take the drop. Sooner or later, you're going to take that drop and you're going to have a lot of fun, but you have to take the drop. So why not now?
Good
What are
question.
you waiting for? You know what I mean? This is the thing with guys. We put things off, tomorrow, next week, next month, 1st of January, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you're cheating yourself, man. You're cheating on yourself on of what, like, as much as like Dan Martell is doing, how much more is he possible? How much more potential has he not even tapped into? You know? How much more are we all capable of? Maybe in 100 years' time, people will be like so capable of tapping into full capacity. But like, what is full capacity? We don't even know.
No.
We look at the likes of Tom Brady and all these athletes as like, wow, Wim Hof, the Iceman, doing these incredible things. But like, we can all do that. Like, why aren't we doing it?
That's a deep question. Why aren't we living our fullest, best, most mindful, most alive, most conscious life? That's a big question.
It is, and as an Irishman, I can say alcohol. It's a major player. It's a major player in keeping us from doing what we need to be doing,
Hmm.
doing what we could be doing. We don't need to be doing it, but we should want. On that note, Robin, in the Irish culture, the last word is the most important word. We do battle over it, verbal battle over the last word. You have to be really sharp to leave a chat or an occasion with the last word. So, on that note, I'm going to leave you. You have the last word.
And it can be about anything, or is there anything
Anything.
specific? Well, maybe I'll go back and answer the question I asked you at the beginning is, do you have hope that people are moving forward in good ways and that are wanting to dig deeper and do the work as you mentioned it? And I would say in my own work also, where I'm helping leaders to be more effective, helping create workplaces where people feel that sense of belonging and value. I am hopeful too. I have to keep hanging on to hope that
Yeah.
despite what we see in the media, despite, there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of ugliness and rhetoric. And yet, in the work that I do and the people that I'm working with, there's a lot of really good people, good leaders wanting to show up and be the best leader they can for their team to support them, bring out the best in them, wanting to see them succeed. And so in those conversations in those places, it continues to give me hope to keep doing the work that I'm doing and just encouraging you to keep doing the work that you're doing. I think it is part of a brighter, more hopeful future. And not to sound Pollyanna, like I realized that totally did just sound a bit, but I mean, we've got to focus on something. Let's focus on how things are getting better and how we can be part of that. And I don't know, maybe that's the last thing I'll say.
Good. That's a great way to end it. I think you're spot on with the observation that there is a lot of good people out there doing a lot of good things. And I heard a really good post on Instagram today just about, you are not what you've been told you
Mm.
are. Just don't believe anything. Before all of that, before you could walk, before any of that, you were something, a spiritual being. So what do you want to be?
Beautiful.
Go and define it yourself. Don't let yourself be defined.
Yeah. I love that.
Where can people find you, Robin?
LinkedIn, Instagram, Robyn Penner-Thiessen.
Right.
A lot of names, I realize, and I've got a website, but LinkedIn and Instagram are probably both the places where Robyn with a Y or a big Y.
Right.
Yeah, I'd love to connect.
Okay. And do you have anything to offer?
Yeah, if they want, I have a leadership assessment for
Okay.
kind of finding some of the blind spots as we've been talking. What are areas that could
Okay.
use development or reflection? So it's a really quick and easy, well, not quick and easy, but it's a free and it's a leadership assessment, self-assessment that you can
Okay.
do. If you want to shoot me
Okay.
a message on Instagram or on LinkedIn, either way, I'd be happy to send that out. Or I can give
Excellent.
it to you to share with your listeners. I don't know what's the best way
No,
to do that.
I'll put that in the notes after the call.
Yeah. Thank you
Robin,
so much, Neil,
it's
for
been a
inviting me.
pleasure. Absolute
This was
pleasure, Robin. Thanks for
my
coming on.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
see the sun is shining in Manitoba.
it is. It's coming low on the horizon. Just right about
Excellent.
now.
Call it what you want. But as guys, there's an exciting challenge to being a man these days. And it doesn't take that much to really stand out. And look, you are not as far away from where you want to be, as you might think. Not when you can look at it from a different angle and get a better appreciation for the experience that has got you this far. You could call it a psychological cold plunge. It's time to freshen things up. Being a dynamic man. That is the challenge today.